Whether you are in Thika, Juja, Nairobi, Kisumu, or Homa Bay, you can kickstart your health science and related studies today by joining Tricent School of Medical Health Science and Technology. Intake is in progress.
Tuzungumze kwa hekima na heshima, tutulize nafsi, tupeane busara, tuwe na mazungumzo ya kujenga, tuelewane mimi na wewe, tusipoziba ufa tutajenga ukuta.
So is the church at State House going to cost 1 billion shillings? That's a big question, of course, and the debate around the announcement by the president that he was erecting a church in State House, but he says, nope, and it will not be public money. We have details lined up for you.
Well, talking about details, the big question is, who is going to inherit you? And do you stand to inherit either your spouse or even your parents? That's a conversation you're going to be having in not too long on Sunday Express as we discuss matters, trends in as far as, what do you call it, succession is concerned. My question is, have you written your will, Kioria? We'll find out.
Let's see the highlights first.
Yes.
Yeah. State House Church project. President William Ruto terms as propaganda, claims that the construction will cost 1.2 billion shillings. Saba Saba Day jitters. Interior CS calls for restraint ahead of commemoration of the historical July 7th. And Embakasi Girls School fire. Nairobi-based school temporarily shut after morning fire raised the dormitory. My name is John Jacob Kioria. You're very much welcome to the broadcast.
Good evening, I'm Regina Manyara.
And now President William Ruto has dismissed claims the church is being erected at State House Nairobi grounds would cost more than 1 billion shillings.
Now, Ruto says the structure is designed to have a seating capacity of about 300 families who reside within State House.
He was speaking in Embu during the 35th anniversary of the ACK Embu Diocese. He continued to rally Kenyans to maintain peace for the sake of development. Sunday morning at Embu ACK Diocese, President William Ruto joined the congregation for Sunday prayers. It is here that he revisited the debate on the construction of a church in State House.
Hagai moja mstari wa 4. Mungu anauliza, nyinyi munaishi kwa manyumba mazuri, hata imewekwa mbao mzuri, alafu nyumba ya Mungu imeharibika. Hiyo swali nikiulizwa nikipatana na Mungu, mnataka nijibu namna gani?
The president refuted claims he was building a denominational altar at the house on the hill.
Tuko mpaka na chaplain. Nilisikia askofu mmoja akiuliza nani atakuwa bishop ya hiyo kanisa. Ile chaplain, tuko na chaplain ambaye anaendelea mpaka saa hii. Nilimkuta pale, si mimi kumwandika, nilimkuta pale akiwa chaplain. Ataendelea tu na hiyo kanisa vile ilivyo.
While maintaining that the plan to upgrade the existing structure would continue, Ruto dismissed the ongoing debate on the estimated cost.
Mjengo ya ghorofa 10 na ngapi bishop? 11. Ghorofa 11. Bishop ameniambia hii imefanywa makadirio ni 350 million. Mjengo ya kanisa ya ghorofa ngapi? 11. Sasa niwaulize, kanisa ya kutosha watu 300 inaweza kufika shilingi bilioni?
At the same time, the head of state called for peace, warning that political tensions and negative ethnicity were barriers to development. He maintained his confidence in his development record, adding that he will not be distracted.
Well, there is that. Now, chaos erupted at the Kenya Human Rights Commission offices as unknown individuals armed with crude weapons stormed the premises, disrupting a planned media briefing.
The organizers, human rights activists and journalists who had been invited to cover the botched event, were forced to scamper for safety.
Meanwhile, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen and a host of leaders urged planners of the Saba Saba Day protest to refrain from acts of hooliganism and call off the protest.
Ben Chumba has that report.
This was the situation Sunday at the premises of the Kenya Human Rights Commission in Nairobi. The Women's Collective Kenya had organized a media briefing to demand an immediate end to arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings of their children for taking to the streets. However, the briefing failed to take off, with witnesses claiming about 20 armed individuals stormed the premises, disrupting the meeting.
Nimenyang'anywa simu, wamama wamepigwa, yani nimebidi tuingie mpaka kwa tanki ya maji ili tujifiche tu juu ya uhai yetu. Na wenye wametuvamia hatuwajui, wamevaa mpaka mask kwa uso.
Wanasema sisi tumepangwa, tunaandaa mkutano, maandamano ya kesho, na hatuko kumwandaa maandamano.
This comes as Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, who was in Meru, urged Kenyans to embrace peace and snub the Saba Saba Day protests.
Nimeambia askari wetu wakuwe wapole kama njiwa, lakini kama ni kupambana na majangili na wale ambao wanataka kuharibu mali ya umma, wawe wakali sana kuhakikisha wananchi wanadumishwa amani.
Similar calls were made by Tana River Senator Danson Mungatana, who urged the youth to call off the protests and engage in dialogue.
Kisa unaendona mpiga polisi, how is that? Hapana, hii ingine sio maandamano, hii ni mipango ambayo ni ya kuharibu mali ya watu.
Separately, a section of Nairobi MPs and MCAs are calling for peace during the commemoration of the Saba Saba Day.
Kesho polisi wajibuke kwa kwamba kuchunga mali ya wafanyabiashara na kuona kwamba kila mtu ameandamana kwa njia ambayo inatakikana kwa saa zile zimewekwa kikatiba, na waende wamalize, waende nyumbani.
I have trended the whole of this week because of the public order bill. I want people to know that I meant that bill for the good of this nation, not to deter or curtail rights.
Wanasiasa wanangoja protesters waingie and then watume watu yao waingie kulut ili wasingizie serikali. Therefore, let's be watchful.
If people cannot be able to manage the protests peacefully, I think it's a high time we go sit down, we have a conversation. Kuna kitu unataka na mimi pia nataka. There is no achievement you are going to get from the streets.
This, as a group of women held a peaceful walk Sunday, urging the youth to uphold the dignity of Saba Saba Day and reject political manipulation.
Kwa hivyo kesho tunakashifu hiyo mambo ya demonstration kabisa, kwa sababu tumeharibiwa biashara ya kutosha. Vitu za Nairobi zimeharibika ya kutosha. Na kujenga nchi inachukua watu muda mrefu.
At the same time, the Kenya Youth Association want the National Police Service to refrain from excessive use of force during protests.
We want to urge the youth to remain peaceful and desist from engaging in any form of violence. And we also want to ask the Kenya Police Service to remain professional in their service and to make sure that they guard public and private property.
Meanwhile, in Mombasa, human rights activists are alleging intimidation after activists Bradley Ouna and Evans Momanyi were grilled by the DCI over the Saba Saba Day protests.
Hii ni sarakasi ya kupotezea hata wakili muda, kwa sababu hata ameuliza maswali hawana kitu ya kujibu.
Human rights tumekuwa targeted, tumeona maactivists kama kina Evans wamekuwa targeted, wamekuwa marked. Sasa tunaishi kwa hali ya kuogopa.
Ben Chumba, Sunday Express.
And of course, in relation to the planned demonstrations slated for tomorrow, there's a late night statement from the National Police Service regarding how they expect, of course, the demonstrations to be conducted, Regina. In
that particular statement, the police service continues to quote the Constitution under Article 37, stating that it guarantees every citizen the right to peacefully and unarmed to assemble, demonstrate, and have any hand in any petitions. That's a right that must be exercised within the confines of the law at all time. Now, such persons or a person are therefore reminded and warned as follows. 1. Any assembly or demonstration must remain peaceful and unarmed. Carrying weapons of any kind shall be treated as a direct violation of the Constitution and the Penal Code Cap 63, Section 78 and 82. The second says entering or attempting to access protected government installations or restricted areas is a violation of the Protected Areas Act Cap 204, the laws of Kenya, and shall attract immediate legal action. Third, looting, vandalism of any form and destruction of property, blocking roads, or even incitement to violence under the guise of protest shall not be tolerated, and such acts are criminal and shall be met with firm lawful action by security agencies. And of course, the public is also cautioned against provoking police officers who by law, of course, will be on duty and trying to maintain order in those demonstrations. The statement is signed by the corporate communications of the National Police Service. And obviously, of course, for those planning to participate as you go to the streets, those are the things that you need to be aware of. That police will also be available in the streets to enforce and, of course, to ensure the adherence to the law as people exercise their constitutional right to probably even present petitions. But let's move this forward. An Embakasi Girls Secondary School in Nairobi has been temporarily shut for 2 days after a fire broke out in one of the dormitories while students were attending Sunday morning prayers. Though no injuries were reported, the incident left a trail of destruction and raised fresh concerns over safety in school boarding facilities. Joseph Ohungu has that report.
Panic gripped Embakasi Girls Secondary School on Sunday morning after a fire razed a dormitory on the second floor of one of the school's buildings. The affected dormitory, which accommodates Form 2 students, went up in flames just as the rest of the school was gathered for their usual Sunday morning worship.
We thank God that all our girls are safe and the school has been secured by police.
The Nairobi County Fire Brigade, in collaboration with Mukuru residents, swiftly responded to the emergency, successfully putting out the fire. According to Embakasi South Deputy County Commissioner Eric Omulevu, the school has been temporarily closed until Wednesday this week as the investigations continue to determine the cause of the inferno.
We want to assure the parents that school programs will continue. We want to assess what can be done immediately so that the girls can be safe and secure so that no more programs can continue.
Despite the heavy loss of property, the government is reassuring parents and guardians that necessary steps will be taken to ensure normalcy resumes at the school.
Nimejulisha my governor na wale watu ambao wanahusika na mambo ya disaster, na tumeelewana pa jioni tutakuwa tunaona ile msaada tutapeana ndiposa masomo yapate kuendelea.
Na ninaomba serikali ya county government na serikali ya national government kama inawezekana na wazazi watoto wasiende nyumbani because hiyo inaathiri masomo.
Joseph Ohungu for Sunday Express.
Time for us to take our first breather on Sunday Express, but when we come back, a very important conversation Regina is having, and we'll pick it from there, right?
Yes, matters of succession. To keep it right here.
All right.
Wizara ya Afya inazindua kampeni ya chanjo ya homa ya matumbo na ukambi na surua kuanzia tarehe 5 hadi 14 Julai mwaka wa 2025. Watoto walio kati ya miezi 9 hadi miaka 14 watapewa chanjo ya homa ya matumbo. Watoto walio kati ya miezi 9 hadi miaka 5 watapewa chanjo ya ukambi na surua. Chanjo hizi ni salama na wahudumu wetu wa afya watapatikana katika vituo vyote vya afya, mashule, masoko na vyumba vya maombi karibu nawe. Homa ya matumbo ni hatari na ni muhimu kuendelea kuzingatia usafi wa maji na kanuni za usafi hata baada ya kupokea chanjo. Ukambi ni ugonjwa unaosambaa haraka na unaweza kusababisha matatizo makubwa mwilini na hata kifo. Chanjo dhidi ya ukambi hutoa kinga thabiti. Tuwalinde watoto wetu. Hakikisha wamepata chanjo hii. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Wizara ya Afya ikishirikiana na UNICEF na Shirika la Afya Duniani.
Tuzungumze kwa hekima na heshima, tutulize nafsi, tupeane busara, tuwe na mazungumzo ya kujenga, tuelewane mimi na wewe, tusipoziba ufa tutajenga ukuta.
Welcome back. As the world celebrates World Kiswahili Day this Monday, the 7th of July, Kiswahili language has carved a niche in fostering regional integration, cultural identity, and social-economic development.
The theme of the World Kiswahili Language Day 2025 is Kiswahili Inclusive Education and Sustainable Development.
Jelly Saladi has that story.
World Kiswahili Language Day is celebrated every July 7th each year. According to the United Nations, Kiswahili is one of the world's most widely spoken languages with over 200 million speakers. It is also the most spoken language in sub-Saharan Africa. This year's theme is Inclusive Education and Sustainable Development. Samson Nthioka is the officer in charge of the country's curriculum at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development.
Kiswahili ni mojawapo ya yale masomo ya lazima katika shule kuu ama shule ya senior. Kwa hivyo kwa njia hiyo sisi kama taasisi tuna imani ya kwamba tunalenga hasa kuhakikisha kwamba Kiswahili kimechukua nafasi yake.
Wala Binwala, an author and a well-known Kiswahili language scholar, says the expansion and use of Kiswahili language has been necessitated by the need to have one common language.
Ugomvi mara nyingi sana ukilinganisha na mataifa mengine kwa sababu ya kukosa lugha moja thabiti, imara, muhimu ya kutuunganisha sisi sote.
Through the use of Kiswahili language, citizens from different countries have managed to carry out trade efficiently as there has been common understanding. This is Busia, a town along the Kenya-Uganda border. Residents here have embraced the use of Kiswahili as a medium of communication.
Kiswahili imesaidia kwa biashara kwa sababu hata soko yenye iko karibu na mimi hapa saizi, Mganda wa hapa anajua lugha ya pesa.
I'm learning Kiswahili because Kiswahili is a language in Kenya or in Busia, Kenya, which unites all people.
Now, how often do people speak Kiswahili language?
I prefer Kiswahili more than even English. So I think na embrace so much. Kila siku, kuanzia asubuhi hadi jioni. Sidhani kama naweza acha kuzungumza Kiswahili pale nyumbani.
Hezron Mogambi is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Mogambi feels that more has to be done to ensure that Kiswahili language becomes the most pivotal language worldwide.
Wengi zaidi wanaendelea kutambua kwamba hii ni lugha yetu, ina uhusiano mkubwa na utamaduni wetu, na kwa hivyo tuipende kama tunavyopenda lugha zetu za kienyeji. Kwa hiyo Kiswahili kina nafasi kubwa, ikikubaliwa hivyo, kuchangia katika mshikamano na amani nchini Kenya.
Kiswahili is more than a language. It is a vessel of African identity, unity and culture.
Swahili is not just any other language. It is a royal language. It is a sweet language, just as sweet as honey. Let's all embrace the use of Kiswahili. Let's all love Kiswahili. And through that, Kiswahili is going to grow worldwide. Jelis Aladi for KBC Channel 1.
Welcome. This is Sunday Express. Yes, tomorrow is going to be the World Kiswahili Day. It also coincides with Saba Saba. We're going to be keeping tabs on that. And now we shift focus and discuss our conversation is succession matters. Have you ever thought about who is going to inherit you once you pass on? Have you ever even put a thought to writing a will and why you need it? So tonight on Sunday Express, we're joined by none other than Njomo, Wakili Njomo John, an advocate of the High Court, to take us through this conversation. Thank you, sir, for making time.
Thank you, Regina.
Now, we start off with the most common, legal challenges that faced during this particular succession process in Kenya. In your time that you have been practicing this, maybe just unpack that so that then we can go through them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And, succession process occurs where every time there's a death, someone dies, you cannot deal with the person's property until you conduct the process of succession. Mm-hmm. So that the requirement is that you have to go to court and then start the process of explaining that someone has died and he or she left following properties, which then should be administered through the succession process. So that sometimes people don't have much of information as to what needs to be done, because there are basic things that you have to follow for the process to be successful. And one of the things, because of lack of information, sometimes if you leave out a property that belongs to the deceased person and it is not included in the succession process, then you start facing hurdles. So there's a problem of either leaving properties outside the succession process or leaving out some beneficiaries. The people who benefit or who are supposed to get an interest in what the deceased person left are called beneficiaries. So that if you leave out a beneficiary from that process, again, you have a problem, because whatever you get from the court can be nullified, and then you end up with repeating the entire process all over again. So people face such challenges, and it is important for, first of all, to sit down as a family of this deceased person and agree that these are the people who are supposed to benefit from we call it the estate. You list them, number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you also say that these are the properties that are left behind, so that you are very clear from the word go as to who is to benefit and what the properties to be shared out. Yeah.
So that it needs a collective, a collective agreement, for those who are supposed to benefit or other members of the deceased.
That is very correct, Regina, because we actually encourage people to take their time, sit down as a family and agree on those particular two issues.
Okay.
Who are the beneficiaries and who are the properties to be
So
shared.
what happens if they said the deceased had not disclosed the extent of his estate? That's one. And secondly, they had not also disclosed that there were others who are likely to benefit. You know, maybe they had a family that the other family did not know about. What happens in that case?
You get it right, because sometimes people manage their properties in a secretive manner. That you have land here, you have land there, but you don't want your family members to know. Because sometimes people don't contemplate that their end is coming. And no one is sure about tomorrow. We don't know how long we are to live. So that if that happens and someone dies and the family is not aware that properties belonged to him, then you find a situation where the family members might actually leave out those properties from the administration through succession. And that is why there's an agency that has come to the fore called the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, so that they can try and collect some of these things. Some of the things that people leave out are bank accounts. People don't know how many bank accounts someone is holding. You have shares in companies. You have not disclosed that you have investment in such companies. So people are not aware.
Even on M-Pesa, e-wallets.
E-wallets, M-Pesa is left out. All these kind of assets, sometimes people assume that you'll have a chance to disclose to your family members that this is what belongs to you, but then death comes and then they are left in the dark.
All right. So, other than just not being a lack of information of what is out there in terms of the estate, the nexus, or rather the challenges between culture and tradition, you know, that impede on this legal process.
Yes, we have faced that, because for a very long time there was a misconception as to who is to inherit properties. People have been saying that since the 2010 Constitution, women are now allowed to inherit properties. But that is a misconception. It's only that it is strengthened what was there before in what is called the Law of Succession Act. Because even the Law of Succession Act that has been there for many years still provided that people are supposed to inherit properties, men and women. But then come 2010 Constitution, we have a situation where it provides very expressly that you should not discriminate against any person because of the reasons, for instance, gender. That you cannot say that the properties belonging to someone who has died will not be shared to his daughters, for instance, because they are women. That has been strengthened by the provision of the Constitution that provides that people should not be discriminated against. But then you have the issue of culture that says sometimes within this particular community, properties are only shared to men. But then the Constitution comes and says that customs which are retrogressive in nature or laws that are against the Constitution itself or any other written law should not have a force of legal effect. So that if you have a cultural belief or customary practice that then discriminates against women and ladies, then that particular culture practice cannot be tolerated within the Law of Succession Act. But we have a situation where women find themselves in those situations. And what we have been telling them is that the law provides and protects all of them. So that in terms of the legal protection, the law has proper safeguards to ensure that everyone benefits. But in terms of practice, people are maybe not willing to speak out. If you are told that it is a taboo for you to follow up on your maybe your deceased father's property, you feel like you don't want to follow that because people believe that probably you might inherit a curse or something like that.
Yes.
Because those cultural practices, when you compare them or you put them, you juxtapose them with the actual practice on the ground, things could be different.
Things could be different.
The law provides actually safeguards to ensure that everyone is treated equally.
So from what you're saying, Wakili, is that as per the Constitution 2020, it reaffirmed the law's provision for women as well as children in as far as
all equals to inherit property. Equally, both men and female. They have equal rights.
Now we find ourselves in a different dispensation in the 21st century. Young people, is there room for them when it comes to succession matters, you see? Are we seeing, fathers sitting down with their sons and daughters and having this conversation?
I think with information and the advent of information that people are now more enlightened, we are finding a situation where people are embracing what we can call estate planning in a way that you could say family are now disclosing. It is known most of the people are probably not hiding their properties. It is known that this is what I own, this is what I owe, because you're supposed to know the properties that you have and also the liabilities that's supposed to be sorted out when you meet your maker. But then we have a situation where people are now embracing even new trends, things like called trust, that you have all your properties collected in a given entity, so that in case of demise, that continues to exist even after the owner's death. So that we have now situations where the situation is changing and people are embracing new ways of managing their properties through wills, maybe, because for a long time we could mention that the statistics that we have are that we have about 20% of people making wills. It is not something that has been embraced by many people, because people think that the moment you do a will, probably you're about to die.
You're inviting death to your door.
It's something you can do. You populate it with time. You have more properties after 5 years. You're still alive because you're still working. You can continue increasing and adding properties that you own in the will. It doesn't mean that at the moment you do a will, you are going to die the following day or soon thereafter.
Is there a right time to start writing a will?
I think the right time to write a will is anytime you have a property. If you have something...
Once you acquire it, you note it down.
Again, you can't do a will if you don't own anything, because a will is supposed to give properties to the future generations or people who will outlive the maker of the will, who is called a testator. So that if you have property, it doesn't do any harm to have a will, even if it is one, so that you have control. What we say is that through a will, someone is able to speak and guide the process even after death. Because if you don't do a will, then the process of administering your estates is very different as to whether you have a will. Because if you have a will, your wishes are known, and that is what will be followed. If you don't have a will, then that process is called intestate succession, and the law takes into effect, so that you don't have control as to who you should give and who is to benefit from your properties.
All right.
So that is when the will comes in.
You mentioned inheritance as well as liability, and when I look at liability, I'm looking at debt posthumous. What happens in the event that the deceased, had debt? How do we handle that?
There are different scenarios. So there are debts that are secured, that will not outlive the life of the borrower. So that if you maybe take a loan or a mortgage, you could have an insurance that is life insurance, that is covered. But there are some. If I borrow you some money and I give me 1 million shillings, and it is known, you have a document that you owe me, or I owe you, then that situation is not a secured kind of loan, and it is not insured.
Also
so that
personal
even
loans,
after personal loans, that is the example that I'm giving, those personal loans will follow. Anyone who has lent someone has the right to follow that money in case there is no insurance to secure the lender in case of demise.
In case of demise. Now, there comes in the intermediaries, and this is where wakili, lawyers, and, they come in. The issue of trust. The issue of trust, because we've had cases where now also lawyers are being crafty and disinheriting the beneficiaries of the estate.
It will be a very unfortunate incident, and which then borders on professional misconduct, because an advocate-client relationship is one of trust, 100% trust, that the moment someone comes and tells me that I have done a will, which is supposed to be known to my beneficiaries after my death, I should be able to keep that as a professional. But in a situation where then that professional is taking advantage, action can be taken against, because you're not allowed to intermeddle with that particular process. So that, but then it happens sometimes that you find professionals who are taking advantage and then even getting conflicted. Because the moment you have been left by someone the trust to manage the estate, and then again, you also have your own interest as to how you are going to get your hand in it. That is misconduct, and action can be taken against through the professional ethics process. That the family can claim against that particular advocate through the Advocates Complaint Commission and say that Advocate X is mishandling our estate, and we are not happy with the way things are being done. And or rather, the family is also allowed to change an advocate. If you realize that your advocate is not doing the right thing, is not discharging his or her duties professionally, you're allowed to change that advocate and appoint another person to do that process for you.
All right.
Yeah.
situations where we have seen families actually get into a dispute, succession matters, yet there is a will. What situations, guarantee or rather necessitate this kind of situation?
A proper process where a will has been written, it is important to ensure that the legal steps are followed. One of the things that we have been advising people is to ensure that the document is very explanatory as to the legal or mental capacity of the person who is making the will. Because it should be very clear that that person is of sound mind and understands what he's doing. So that a will is tested through the court process. A will can be invalidated in case it doesn't meet some legal threshold requirements. So that when you're making it, you should be very, very keen on the things that you are doing. One of the things that you should disclose is the people who are supposed to benefit from your properties. Even if you don't want to give maybe one of your children some properties that you have, it should be very clear in the will that you know you have that particular child, but you have decided not to give property to him or her. But a situation where the will does not disclose all your beneficiaries, then that particular person who has been left out can go to court and say that this person did not understand what he or she was doing, and that will can be invalidated. Again, one of the things we also advise is as to witnesses, because a will should be witnessed by someone who is not benefiting again. You cannot appoint or give me a property within the will, and I also act as a witness. So those small mishaps sometimes mess up a very critical document that's supposed to guide your affairs after death. So it is very important to prepare properly and also seek legal advice sometimes when you're doing such documentation.
Okay. Now, we have been discussing succession matters, and we are going to have this conversation once again, given the number of questions that you're getting on our social media platforms. There's a Karaoke there who is saying that this is a very good, informative conversation. And thank you very much for that feedback. We're going to be looking at, your feedback and sharing it with our guest tonight, who's none other than Wakili Njomo John, or an advocate of the High Court with Kamotho and Njomo advocates there, just giving insights on the trends in as far as matters succession is concerned, the do's and don'ts. And this is a conversation we're going to have once again, as given the emerging trends that we have seen. We've seen a High Court ruling there that has pitted the religion, seemingly pitting religion against the Constitution 2010. So we bring this conversation to a close. Be sure to check our website for further details. But before we call it a day or a night, I hand you over to John Jacob Kioria on the other side of the studio with an update on what is happening in the sporting arena. To you, John.
Thank you very much, Regina. And we kick it right off because Olympic champions Faith Kipyegon and British Chebet made headlines last night, breaking world records at the Diamond League in Eugene, Oregon, cementing their place among the sports elite in the 1,500 meters and 5,000 meter races.
Faith Kipyegon stormed to victory in the women's 1,500 meters with a time of 3 minutes 48.68 seconds, breaking her own world record by 0.36 seconds.
She's about 3 meters behind them. Has she got anything in the home straight? Can she catch it up? Can she chase the clock? Well, Teji moves past Hull to take second place. The crowd are on their feet. She's got a chance here. Faith Kipyegon is chasing it down. If she breaks it, it won't be by much. Faith Kipyegon going for the world record. Has she got it? Yes, she has. I did it. I've got it again. The world record in the 1,500 meters.
Before Kipyegon's record, compatriot Beatrice Chebet set a new women's 5,000-meter world record with a time of 13 minutes 58.06 seconds, shaving more than 2 seconds off the previous record set by Ethiopia's Gudaf Tsegai in Eugene 2 years ago.
Hitting the wall psychologically and physically, and she's done just that because Chebet has destroyed her there with an acceleration just inside the last 200. She comes into the straight now. Watch the clock. We're looking for the 14-minute barrier to be broken. 9 seconds to go. 8, 7. Surely she's going to get there. It's going to be mighty tight, but she has indeed smashed the world record. 13:58. The 14-minute barrier has gone. The world record of Gudaf Tsegai.
The two were among 17 individual champions and 14 world record holders competing at the Prefontaine Classic, in which the 5,000 meters and 10,000 meter races were being used by athletes to secure tickets to the World Championship in Tokyo, Japan later this year.
An incredible pace here down towards the line. It's going to be very, very quick indeed. Just getting a little tired at the end there. 8:45. Brilliant performance.
And now Benson Murkomen from Elgeyo Marakwet and Emily Chepkemoi of West Pokot counties are the winners of a fourth edition of a Nairobi City Marathon held today. That year-old Murkomen had finished 8th in 2023 and hit the front at the 37-kilometer mark to cross the finish line. That in of course, being fast in 2 hours, 8 minutes and 37 seconds. Justus Langat took silver 10 seconds behind the winner, while Albert Kangogo claimed bronze in 2 hours, 9 minutes and 6 seconds. Chepkemoi, who is 26, trains in A10, came back stronger after failing to finish in the first edition of the race to take the women's 42-kilometer title in 2 hours, 25 minutes and 52 seconds ahead of Vivian Jerotich and Lucy Chelele, who finished second and third in 2 hours, 26 minutes and 2 hours, 26 minutes, 37 seconds respectively. Evans Kipchumba emerged victorious in the 21-kilometer in 1 hour, 1 minute and 20 seconds, 1 second ahead over Stephen Kimutai, who finished second, while Nahashan Kipsang completed podium positions in 1 hour, 1 minute and 32 seconds. Melvin Jepkemboi took 1 hour, 9 minutes and 25 seconds to win the women's half marathon, followed by Millicent Jelimo and Emily Chebet in second and third positions, respectively. The marathon winners bagged 3.5 million each, while second place received 2.25 million and 1.5 million. This year's edition attracted over 15,000 participants.
Prepare well. So nilikuwa nakuja kama nilikuwa nimefanya mazoezi ya kutosha.
Vile nilikuwa 25 kilomita, nikasikia kama mwili best iko juu, wako 250, nikakuja na best ya 301, kupika 33 kilomita, mimi nikafunga, alafu ndio nikashikilia mpaka 37, ndio nikaondoka.
Now to put a cap on Sunday Express, and of course you're paving the way for yet another live match that will be showcased right here, because KBC is your true sports partner. Regina, it's time for us to exit.
Yes, that is a wrap on Sunday Express. Be sure to tune into our website, that is www, for perusal obviously, www.kbc.co.ke for further details on stories that have been making headlines across the country as well as globally. Have a restful week ahead.
And so Dingo was our sign language interpreter. My name is John Jacob Kioria.
Tuzungumze kwa hekima na heshima, tutulize nafsi, tupeane busara, tuwe na mazungumzo ya kujenga, tuelewane mimi na wewe, tusipoziba ufa tutajenga ukuta.
what a night it's been. The opening ceremony with lots of pyrotechnics, and that was followed by fireworks on the pitch as well, delivered by Barbara Bander, amongst others. The pictures telling the story and the emotions of a game that I'm sure will give a real platform